Hello and welcome from South Africa, home of the 2010 World Cup. On today's show from Cape Town, we look at the state of preparations for one of the world's premier sporting events. Hello and welcome. Forget the Olympics. For South Africans, there's little to be compared with the World Cup. And that spectacular event is being hosted here in 2010. In fact, it's the first time that the prestigious soccer tournament is coming to the continent of Africa. Preparations are well underway as South Africa is planning to spend more than $3 billion on the World Cup. But what will fans find when they arrive? Crime is certainly a concern, as is transportation. For South Africans, one of the questions being raised is, will the money put into the World Cup trickle down in the form of jobs and opportunities, or will it come at the expense of those in need? Now, don't forget, we take your questions and comments on this program. The numbers are on your screen now. Joining me to discuss the 2010 World Cup is Dr. Danny Jordaan, CEO of South Africa's Local Organising Committee. Great to have you here.
Wonderful to be here.
Well, you know, 2010 still sounds like it's a bit of a way away. But are you going to be ready when the time comes?
Yes, absolutely. Well, we count it by the day and by the minute. We have a big countdown clock just in front of our office. So I can tell you today we're 1,030 days away.
And what at this stage, this sort of 1,030-day stage, is the biggest challenges facing you?
Well, I think for any organizing committee is to get the infrastructure in place. And we are focused essentially on the construction of 5 new stadia. And so far we are very happy with the progress.
There was a lot of questions, of course. You know, Africa, does it have the kind of infrastructure? Does it have the kind of organizational capability to be able to host something as complex as the World Cup? Now, I think to some degree you've managed to put people at ease with that, yeah?
Well, we started the campaign for our right to host this World Cup in 1994. That is soon after we've been to the 94 World Cup in the United States. And it took us 10 years. It was awarded on the 15th of May 2004. But also we've hosted many other major events like the Rugby World Cup, the Cricket World Cup, and 11 major events in our country.
Now, Dr. Jordaan, for you yourself, it's going to be your 5th World Cup. You've attended and sort of helped out with 4 others in the past. That gives you a good 2 decades experience in the business.
Yes, I think one got good insight in the complexities of the event, the challenges in the United States and then France, Korea, Japan, and finally Germany. Each World Cup brings about unique challenges, and for us, the challenges are different, and so the experience will help in the end.
Now, was there anything from those the World Cups that you did attend and helped out with? Was there anything in particular that you could apply to South Africa and say, okay, it's good to know this, we can avoid these problems, or we can actually benefit from this experience?
Well, of course, looking at the last World Cup, because also one must remember that every World Cup is significantly different. The 94 World Cup in the United States was a 24-nation event. From 98 onwards is a 32-nation event. So essentially we are focusing on the German World Cup. And there I think one of the things that came out of that World Cup that we would like to build on is the extent to which the World Cup succeeded in unifying the German nation. Germany in 1990 was divided between East and West Germany. We were there in 1990. And since that, you still had the feeling that there were East and West Germans. In Leipzig and every other city in East Germany in particular, we saw them draping themselves with flags and celebrating the fact that they were just Germans and were no longer East and West Germans, to the extent that we also had a divided nation between black and white, and since 94 pursued the idea of consolidating our new nation and building a new South African nation. I think the 2010 World Cup similarly will put the finishing touches on that nation-building process.
Now, how does soccer fit into South African society as far as issues of race and colour, you know, and I guess economic standing?
Well, football is the sport of the poor. It is one of the sport that's always defied the apartheid laws in the past. We played together across the color divide. Of course, South Africa was first suspended in '64 and then expelled in 1976 by FIFA. And FIFA set two conditions for South Africa's return. One, that apartheid had to cease in terms of law and policy. And secondly, there must be a single non-racial football organization in South Africa. So football always stood on the side of the right and just, and then move forward to consolidate this new nation.
And interestingly enough, I was out on Robben Island filming, where so many political prisoners, including Nelson Mandela, were held, and that had a history with soccer as well.
Yes, I think if you speak to the Robben Islanders, they'll tell you of their own struggle to play sport and played football in particular. And once that right was granted, you had the Makana Football Association. FIFA on the 18th of July recognized Makana Football Association as an honorary member of FIFA. And that was part of Nelson Mandela's 89th birthday celebration because football gave the prisoners an opportunity to communicate, to regenerate the energy, to refocus, to rededicate, and strengthen their commitment that one day this country will be a non-racial democratic South Africa. So football was a renewal of that spirit.
Now, when you've got a couple of years to go before the sort of crunch point, how do you get the country excited? Because obviously there's the euphoria of being awarded the honor of hosting the games, but what about actually getting the people excited to the point where they, there's the sense of them impending?
Well, I think that excitement is now beginning to emerge as the stadiums are emerging out of the ground all over the country. We have completed our emblem for the World Cup, our emblem for the Confederations Cup. We've completed our slogans already for the World Cup. Our match schedule is complete for both the Confederations Cup and the World Cup. The commercial program has done extremely well. It's generated about $3.2 billion in sponsorship and broadcast revenue. We have secured all the funding necessary for the stadium and the support infrastructure. And you can see the sense of excitement emerging and the commitment to make this World Cup one of the best ever and make it a celebration not only of South Africa but of the entire African continent.
Well, of course, you're talking large sums of money, and I wonder, most of these kind of events always end up having a bit of a struggle with budget towards the end, staying within the original budget allocation. How have you fared so far as spending?
Well, that is one of the major challenges, is to remain within budget. So far, we've always, since '94, come in between 30 and 40% below our budget. It's very important because you'll need the money in the end, and we are very happy with the progress thus far.
Now, critics obviously say that there's, it's a lot of money being spent on an event that could be better spent on helping the society. There are big issues still to be considered in South Africa, from poverty alleviation to tackling HIV/AIDS and so on. How do you answer the critics who say, well, the money is going to the wrong area?
Well, I think that it is a huge responsibility, particularly because South Africa is a developing country, and it is the first since Mexico to host this World Cup in its present format since, of course, as we said, 1998. And therefore, you can never skew the allocation of resources away from the social needs, and whether it's education, health, housing, in building infrastructure for the event. We are very happy that if you look at the budget of 2007, in all of the social areas there's been increased spending, including safety and security, 8.7 billion rand for safety and security. And so it is not that we are building stadiums at the expense of health or education, but there must also be a recognition that we need improved infrastructure for sustainable economic growth. We need better roads, better water, electricity, the ICT improvement in our country to be globally competitive.
You'd said that in South Africa that football is the sport of the poor. How can you ensure that the poorer elements of society have access to the games, that they're not excluded from the World Cup matches, tickets are not a cost issue, that they can actually get in and see the games that are taking place in their country?
Well, that's a commitment that we've made. The football supporters in our country are the low income and sometimes no income football fans. So we will provide opportunities. For example, this will be the first World Cup that will have what we call a Category 4 ticket. It is specifically designed at addressing the issue that you raise. That ticket price, although we have not finalized it, will be lower than any ticket price since 1994. It will be lower than Germany, lower than Korea, Japan, lower than France. It would be a ticket targeting the real football fan in our country.
Well, Dr. Jordan, one of the issues that I've been, obviously discussing with people here as I've been broadcasting from South Africa is the issue of crime. And a lot of people worry, will the crime get in the way? Will the crime perhaps deter people from coming to South Africa to attend the games?
No, I think, of course, crime is an issue that we must address. But when it comes to major sporting events, and I've indicated that we had 11 major events since 1995, the Rugby World Cup in our country, all of them safe, all of them secure, not a single crime incident. On the 19th of July this year in Cape Town, we had the Nelson Mandela celebration match. We had Pele, Samuel Eto'o, the best players in the world assembled here, not a single incident. So our ability to safeguard every event in our country has been tested over 11 years and not a single incident. Crime as a societal issue is something that we have to address, but our tourism inflows have grown by 11% every year. We are playing a rugby test match tonight as we sit here. We have the All Blacks coming here in New Zealand. We have cricket tours. Every weekend we have major international events in our country. Never had a single incident.
Now I wonder with the games coming up, how you strike that balance between giving the people sense of security but an openness also. You're across 9 cities, quite a diverse range of locations. Have you been able to make sure everyone keeps up equally, that there is because you yourself, I think you're up to about 100 staff now in the committee. You're spreading yourself across nine locations and so on, dealing with all the international issues and sponsorship. Are you able to cope with keeping an eye on everything?
Yes, of course, modern technology helps you. We have a strong program management system that will cover all of the host cities. And you are able to sit in Johannesburg and know exactly what is happening in every location. And we will track all of the people, and we'll be able to also make sure that the movement of both the teams, the spectators, or VIPs, are properly coordinated and taken care of.
And it's interesting, I know you have to look at the legacy of the games. Even before they take place, before the World Cup takes place, you have to look at the legacy of what it will leave behind. What preparations have you got going?
Yes, as I've indicated, because we are a developing nation, you have to look at how do you locate the infrastructure required for the event in the context of building a sustainable model for economic growth into the future. So when we build a road or an airport expansion, we have to ask the question, how will we use that facility after the 11th of July 2010? What about buses, additional aircraft that we require? So we've asked every host city before we awarded them the right to be a host city to place the World Cup in the context of an integrated development strategy for each one of our host cities. So we are very happy. That has been audited by one of the banking institutions called the Development Bank of South Africa, and they submitted a report. So we made sure that the money must be achieving that objective of ensuring economic growth beyond 2010.
Well, sir, we had an email I want to put to you. It came from Doha in Qatar, and Nirabat says, when the Asian Games came to Qatar, there was a lot of work needed, but it was done and the games were beautiful. Like us, South Africa will cope, and they will put a new foot forward on the international stage. So a vote of confidence there from our viewer in Qatar. And I wonder how this might set the stage for South Africa and perhaps other African countries to host future such events.
I think it's very important. This is the first time after 100 years that any African country will be hosting the World Cup. The Olympics was never hosted by any African country. So we understand that the need to conclude on a successful basis this event in our country will give the African continent the confidence, and perhaps soon after 2010 we may see the Olympics coming to Africa. So it's very important. We don't want Africa to wait another 100 years to host either the Olympics or the World Cup.
Well, Dr. Danny Jordan, thank you very much for talking to us. It was good to talk with you. Good luck with that.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, sir. Well, thank you for being with us. On tomorrow's show from Cape Town, we look at the challenges facing South Africa in the post-apartheid era. We'll be joined by Democratic Alliance leader Helen Ziller and AIDS activist Zaki Ahmed. Make sure you join us for that and stay tuned for Street Talk, which is coming up next.